had this happen before. I'm in the emergency room, and I remember the emergency doctor coming in and saying, you know what, I'm sorry, you lost a baby. There's something I want to get off my chest.
Okay, go ahead.
And the reason why I want to talk about this and address it right now is because I'm literally going through it right now, and it's fresh in my mind.
Okay.
So I went to Publix today to get some fruits, and I frequent this Publix quite often because, you know, this is my Publix. This is where I shop. So people know who I am. They've seen me pregnant, my son, my husband, my grandparents, everything. So I get to the cashier, and this is somebody I see quite often. And she's like, how are you? How's everything? Your son must be so big right now. How is he doing? And I tell her, he's 10. She's like, oh my God. The next thing she asks me, this is where I have an issue with. So when's the girl coming? When's the next one coming? He's 10. You got to give him a sister.
Yeah.
You know, I feel a certain way when people ask things like that. You know, it's not even about the ask. Because anybody can ask you, hey, you know, are you thinking about having more children? Did you only want to have one? But it's just
it's the
boom
assumption
in your face.
It's the assumption. I mean, honestly, that one's pretty difficult. But imagine being asked if you're pregnant.
Oof. Oh my God.
It has not happened to me, but I've seen it. You know, and it's like, you know, that's a little forward.
Yeah, it's
forward.
forward.
And it's a big assumption to assume that when's the girl coming?
Exactly.
Or, you know.
Or I haven't had any trauma. Or maybe I'm just, I can't. Or I just don't want to, right? So I'm going to be open about it. And I feel it's a subject that a lot of people are not talking about because it's such a taboo, you know? Mm-hmm. And Nico was 4 years old, and we got pregnant, and I'm excited, of course, we're telling people, and the whole bang, etc. Mm-hmm. And one day I found myself, I was spotting, and, you know, I didn't think anything of it. Maybe I should have listened to my body, and I took blame for that. You know, I still blame myself a little bit till today because I feel like I could have paid more attention. I could have called my doctor right away. But it is what it is. It's in the past. And so the next day, same thing. I spotted. So by then, I went to go see my physician, but it was already too late. So the first thing he asked me was, "What's your blood type?" And I'm sorry I didn't know, but I'm O.
And just so you know, and this is something that I've had this discussion even with my own family. Like, my mom asked me not too long ago about my kid's blood type. Mm-hmm. And in my country, I'm from Panama, for those of you that don't know, in my country, they put it on your birth certificate.
Okay.
So I'm B positive, right? But I wouldn't have a clue as to the blood type of my kids because it's so easily disclosed. So please don't blame yourself for not knowing, because for some reason some disclose and some don't.
Exactly. So
or it depends on the country.
I mean, I come from Haiti, so
yeah.
I don't think it's there on my birth certificate. I highly doubt it.
And it should be, though.
And I think so.
Because I think it's important, especially for situations like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, my blood type is O, like I mentioned. And whenever somebody with the O blood type is pregnant, you have to get a RhoGAM shot. Okay, because my blood attacks the baby. So therefore, there's the higher risk of a miscarriage. I didn't know this, right?
I've never even heard of that.
Apparently something with, I lack some type of enzyme, or, you know what, I should be more knowledgeable because I already went through the experience. But honestly...
No, but I mean, you had your firstborn.
Right. I didn't go through it.
And you didn't have that issue. So how would you know...
The only thing is they told me, hey, get the RhoGAM shot. That was it. That was the extent of the conversation in my first pregnancy.
And I think that's what's so important about, you know, our doctors and them being thorough with the patient. I mean, look, I'm not blaming doctors. I love doctors. Okay, I love you guys. But, you know, sometimes some of them will just assume. kind of like the lady
Correct.
at Publix assumed,
Right.
oh, you know, she just, when is she going to have another one? Like,
Exactly.
it's just not, you know, that you would know these things or what these things are for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate that you didn't know because, you know, obviously there was a sad consequence to not having that information,
Right,
you know?
right.
So I really think, you know, when it comes to that subject for you, and this is just my opinion, right? Don't blame yourself.
Yeah.
But we should still have a talk
We
with
should
the lady from Publix. Like, please don't be so forward.
Yeah. So the experience was, it was a very traumatizing experience, honestly, for me, because I've never had this happen before. I'm in the emergency room, and I remember the emergency doctor coming in and saying, you know what, I'm sorry, you lost a baby. You know, it was such a hard shock for me. And I remember my husband was next to me and he's sobbing, and me, you know, if you know anything about me, I'm not an emotional person, you know? I'm not a let's hold hands and cry it out type of thing. No, I hold everything in. So I think this is why, that's another reason why I feel, you know, our collaboration is going to help me even more to get those harbored feelings out. You get what I'm saying? So I remember him sobbing, and I came home and I'm just like, oh, right? And my body's going through the motion of getting rid of this everything.
It's gonna be so
and
devastating.
it took a piece of my soul, you know, it really did. And so afterwards, every time that my husband and I, you know, would have sex, really, it's in my mind, like, yeah, this time around we're getting pregnant. This time around we're getting pregnant, and it's happened each and every time. So it put this stress on me, mentally and physically, you know. So, and it took a long time for me to get over it, That, okay, this is not happening. Maybe because of my stressors, or maybe it's just God saying, you know what, you're good with one. You know,
that's okay too.
That's okay too. So I feel when somebody comes out with those questions, it's like, is one not enough? That's one. Second, do I need to have 5 kids to be extremely happy in life? You know, or hey, you have 3, don't you?
I do.
You do. So after your first, did anyone, or I mean, your parents maybe saying, "Oh, when's the next one coming?" type of thing?
Well, no, but there was a pretty long lapse between my firstborn and my secondborn. I was very young when I had my first daughter, you know, and some people, when they hear, you know, oh my God, you were 19 years old when you had your first kid, you know, I was in love. And you know, we wanted to have a baby, I guess. I mean, she was kind of a surprise. But, you know, nevertheless, she was embraced with joy. But, you know, you had the first one, and then the second one was like, okay, you know what, if I don't do this now, I may never do it. So it was kind of like a spur of the moment, like, she's going to be 6. I don't want to leave her alone in the world.
Oh, so you had your second after she was 6?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a 6-year age gap.
Okay.
And then I gave birth at a Catholic hospital here in Miami. Mm-hmm. And they don't do tubal ligations. And so 5 years later, on Michael Jackson's death day, I cried for 2 reasons. The first reason was because Michael died, and I was a huge fan, believe it or not. I love me some Michael Jackson. And the second reason, I found out that I was pregnant with number 3. So he was a surprise, but I got my boy. It wasn't, he was completely unexpected. But yeah, you know, the whole pregnancy and the whole experience of motherhood and deciding how many, I never really thought about it.
Okay.
You know, I didn't really mind having just one, maybe 2.
Right.
Because my concern with just having the one was if something happens to me or her dad.
Right.
You know, I don't want to leave her alone in the world.
Exactly.
You know, but
I mean, that's what we want, right? As parents, we want the multiple, so that way something happens.
Right.
They have the siblings.
But then I thought, she's got cousins.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But you come from a big family?
No, I'm the eldest of 3.
Okay.
And for me, you know, I love having siblings, but it wouldn't let me not say that because I make it sound, like I think I would have been okay. And that sounds a little off, but that's not really where I'm going with this. It's just I think that you are capable of surviving anything.
Of course.
So if you're a one-child household, you're just as blessed as a
Absolutely.
5-child household. It doesn't
Absolutely.
really make that big of a difference. It's just your life experience is different. And of course, you need to be mindful of the fact that you're an only child versus having siblings. Because when you have siblings, you get the hand-me-downs, or everything is Marsha, that type of thing.
Right.
But when you're an only child, it's kind of about you.
Right.
So that when you're an adult and you're in relationship,
you have these characteristics of the only child only child syndrome. It's a real thing.
It is. So, there's no right or wrong.
Right.
And I wanted to be mindful when I said that because it's I don't think in reality one is worse or better than the other. I think it's just a different human experience and we all have to be mindful. Siblings can have sibling rivalry. They get really catty with each other. Sometimes they're completely different characters.
That's true.
And so it happens in every family. But back to your point, people don't think.
Right.
And I don't want to blame this on generation, but I find that the older generations tend to have certain expectations that maybe newer generations don't.
Right.
I think our generation, and I say our generation meaning, X and
exactly.
and more
Let's
recent,
specify that, right?
Right, is a little bit more flexible. Right? We're a little bit more accepting of different family dynamics,
right,
different choices. Listen, I have a lot of friends that decided to have zero kids.
Right? Because not only that, it's expensive too, and the responsibility. But going back to your point, though, yes, it's the generation, right? But it's just being mindful, It's just being mindful of how you say certain things, because I will tell you, every time somebody throws it at me that way, it's like taking a knife and you're just digging it in my stomach.
Yeah. I believe you. And unfortunately, and I say this all the time, it's like you can't teach people manners.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately,
and it's not their fault though, right? Because let me go back. I'm not saying all of them, right? They're just not thinking of. Let me clear that up, people. Let me clear that up.
They just don't know better. They're like 100
No,
years
you
old.
know better. It's just, I don't know. It's just, I just feel sometimes people need to think about it, I know people who can't even have one, you just be a little bit more sensitive.
And people that choose not to have the one, and there are plenty of kids in the world right now that I find need parents. And then there are children in this world that have parents that aren't parenting. And
Absolutely.
That's a whole other episode for us. And I really want to touch on that subject in the future because, raising kids in this day and age, I think has never been more difficult because of the way that we've changed as a society, women's rights, the requirement of both parents to work and stuff like that. So the fact that life gave us an opportunity to have one or three, it doesn't just stop there.
Yeah.
It continues
Absolutely.
with what are you going to do with those three? Because in my mind and in my heart of hearts, I believe that is your real legacy.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a gazillionaire.
Right.
But if you're a crappy parent and you leave crappy people in the world, then doesn't matter.
You're doing
did nothing.
Dissatisfaction to your kids. Absolutely.
So I commend you for sharing such a personal story. And I'm sorry on behalf of...
No need to apologize.
Well, you know what? We should all be held accountable.
Yeah.
Because this topic is just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely.
Compared to so many other things that we should all be looking at and discussing and apologizing to each other for certain behaviors, things. And,
right.
But I do believe that sometimes people are just on autopilot.
Yeah.
That doesn't excuse the behavior.
Right. So just next time you want to ask somebody something like that, just think about it first. It's the delivery, not the question. It's the delivery.
Yes, not everything you see is what you think it is.
Exactly.
So let's be mindful. Let's love on each other.